All right, what is going on, you guys? Let's talk about this Nioh 2 alpha. Right now, the consensus from what I'm seeing, all the people I follow who are playing this, a lot of them are saying that this could have been Nioh DLC, that it's an expansion pack, it's so similar to the first game that it should have just been included with it, that it's not really different enough. And there are some key differences, which I'm going to talk about, but overall, I do agree. I do feel like this could have been DLC. This could have been an expansion pack or something that just belongs in Nioh 1. So I wanted to show just some of these enemies and kind of similar enemies to Nioh 1. And we're going to talk about similarities and just how much the same this game is looking to be compared to Nioh 1, and why that's not necessarily a bad thing, but we do gotta, discuss it. So yeah, the Nioh 2 alpha has been going since technically I think Thursday night, and it goes until June 2nd, which is a pretty lengthy alpha. And this alpha, of course, is for the developers to get our feedback and understand if maybe we're having any kind of issues when it comes to online connectivity and things like that. Or maybe they're just looking for bugs at this point. But honestly, I haven't seen anything in this alpha that tells me this game is not ready to go. It just looks super polished, and I would not be shocked if this releases this year after all, because at the beginning of the year, I actually predicted that this game would surprise us and release in 2019. And after playing the alpha, I am feeling pretty damn good about that prediction. And if I had to guess why it would be coming so soon, or why it looks to be coming sooner than we think, it's probably because they used a lot of the same assets from the first game. From the menus to the combat and the animations of that combat, the enemy designs, all of that looks the same as Nioh 1. But there are some key differences in Nioh 2. And let's go ahead and talk about those. So first things first, and you're going to see this right away once you start playing, is that there's now character customization. This is huge because in the first game, we didn't have that. We had a set character, his name was William, and we had to play as him. The only thing we could really change on him was like his hair, and even that was like very limited. So having character customization where we build upon a default character from the ground up, where we can change their looks, their ethnicity, their sex, you can now be a female, that's huge. And I know a lot of people are going to appreciate that. And what's even more awesome is that you're taking this customization and putting it on top of already great customization when it comes to weapons, armor, and matching stats for weapons and armor, and then also your skill sets and everything that you can learn as far as making your build and as you level up and how you level up. It all contributes to this unique character. And now, not only is it going to play to your unique style like before, but you're also going to look more unique compared to another person. And that's what I always appreciated about Nioh, is that all experiences are pretty different. There would be times I'd watch somebody stream Nioh and they would have a completely different set of skills that they're using, different weapon that they're using, and I always felt like their experience was different than mine, for the most part. So yeah, having that all come together and have this customization go even further is all good. There's nothing really to complain about there. And it does make Nioh 2 have that upgrade feeling, like, okay, this is a good evolution. Another difference with Nioh 2 is that now you can have yokai form, which wasn't in the first game. The yokai was the enemy in the first game. That was the forms they were taking in order to go against us. And now we can get yokai forms. So that's the big difference. And that's really what's been the focus. Even when it came to the first trailer that came out, that's what they focused on as like, look, this is what's different. This is going to take a spin on what you're used to. So yeah, that's interesting. And now that I'm playing the alpha, I'm kind of starting to understand how it's working. Hopefully I can describe it well. I'm still learning, so forgive me if I butcher this. But from what I'm gathering, I'm collecting these kind of like soul cores of enemies and bosses, and I have to register them kind of Persona style at the shrines. This is where we level up. This is where we save the game, essentially. So yeah, we have to register these to keep them. Otherwise, if we die while we're holding them, we lose them along with our Amrita. Of course, you have that first and only chance really to go and get it back. But if you die again, they're kind of just, lost forever. So that was interesting. I didn't really expect that. I just thought this was going to be something we collect like the first game, or maybe just after we beat bosses, we, get these yokai forms that we get to use. But I'm finding that even smaller enemies are dropping these soul cores, and that was a little bit surprising. I didn't expect that. And ultimately, this probably will give more incentive, when you're farming or you're just going through these random enemies, instead of always, just running away or whatever. I think it would give more incentive to looking around and discovering more enemies and seeing if they do drop these cores. So yeah, that's something that's very different in Nioh 2. Just taking that form in general is pretty awesome. And I'm not so sure if I like it more, because the spirit animals, honestly, I didn't use them a whole lot, but I thought the variety of them was pretty unique, and there was a lot of different ones. So I guess we'll see in the final game how much variety we have with these. But I'm assuming there's going to be plenty of them that we come across, and it will make them worth looking for. But like I said, I didn't really use them too much. And even with this alpha, there's probably no footage of me even using them, because that's just, I don't know, it's just something I don't really use. But I do appreciate it that it's there and it's fun to watch, like when I see other people do it. It gives Nioh its identity. I feel like Nioh, when it comes to the franchise itself, that's what makes it Nioh. Also the aesthetics, the look of the game, the colors, they can be very vibrant when it comes to enemies and all of that. And that's something I've always appreciated. And it goes beyond, I think, in Nioh 2. I think the game looks great. It looks upgraded in terms of visuals. And I even noticed with the 60 frames during this alpha, it felt and looked better in terms of the world around me. Because if you guys played Nioh 1, you probably remember that performance mode, which was 60 frames, and it worked well in terms of your character. But the background, at times, I would notice a lot of enemies far away. They would be moving really, really slow. And I guess I always just assumed that was to make up for the 60 frames. But in this game, in the alpha, I'm not noticing that happening. It seems like the background and the enemies far away are moving at a normal speed. So it seems like they did improve that, and that's a plus. So yeah, 60 frames is here. It feels great. Overall, it feels like Nioh. I mean, we are playing Nioh 2, so I didn't expect it to feel any different as far as like the gameplay itself, the combat, the running, the animations when you're running and walking, switching weapons, all of that is the same. And the last big difference that I really have in my mind right now is that Nioh 2 now has these blue looking bloody graves along with the red ones. Because in the first game, the bloody graves were NPCs of real characters that were connected online. Real people, I mean, people who were playing, and anytime they died, it would create this bloody grave that you can activate, and you can fight them and gain their armor if you defeat them. So that was in the first game, but now in Nioh 2, there's the blue ones which act as summons, and these can be anywhere in the game. It's not just before a boss or anything like that. It's literally anywhere. So I've noticed a ton of them just walking around and fighting throughout the world. I hovered next to them just to see exactly what they were, and yeah, that's what they are. They're summons of actual people who are connected online. So I think that's cool. I don't think I would use it my first playthrough, because typically I don't really do that. My first playthrough, I will just play by myself. But after that, it acts as such great replayability, because now I can co-op with people. I can pretty much help anybody anywhere in the areas now, instead of just certain spots or whatever. And then with co-op, you can still, do that as far as playing with a friend and connecting to people and just helping them out. And that always adds replayability. So that's here as well, but now you have this, kind of blue, bloody grave looking thing, which I'm not sure if that's the right term for that one, but that's the summons now, and that's different compared to the first game. So those are huge differences, but that's kind of where it stops. Because when it comes to the rest of the game, from the menus to the gameplay, like I before mentioned, to the customization beyond creating just a character, when it comes to your weapons, the blacksmith and making those weapons, souls matching weapons, transferring stats, learning skills, those are all the same. The one difference, though, in terms of skills is the skill trees are now more expansive than ever. As you can see here on the screen, I mean, they kind of go for days. So, like, there's a lot to do for each type of weapon as well. So it's not like you just have one skill tree that covers everything. No, you have specific ones for specific weapons. I love using the new edition of the double hatchets. I've been rocking with those, and I've really loved this. And I haven't seen a lot of other new weapons, but this is one of them. And it has its own skill tree just for that. So man, you take, all the customization that was there before, and now you have it to expand even more. It's like they really knew that we enjoyed this. I'm sure they got tons of feedback that we love the complexity and we love how deep it goes. So they were like, okay, cool, we'll give you even more. And so, yeah, that's a huge thing, I think, in Nioh 2. The customization is really going to stand out as far as your own character. And these skill trees, just by looking at them, you can see, like, damn, they really got down. They really went in. And that's admirable. I think that's a good thing. But like I said, really, besides this and besides the other couple things I mentioned, the differences pretty much stop. This is just more Nioh. The menus especially look exactly the same. The play style, the gameplay, of course, should not change too much, so I'm not really complaining at all. I'm just stating the fact, it's more Nioh. It's the same. I haven't really noticed anything else combat-wise that's just so incredibly different besides the double hatchets and being able to throw them kind of, Kratos style, Leviathan axe style, which is awesome. That's probably why I'm liking them so much. Besides that, really, I haven't seen anything that's just completely different. Because so far, from what I'm seeing, we still have our katanas, our swords, our spears, kind of the same weapons that we're used to. And maybe in the full game, I'll see a bunch more. But so far, really, the double hatchets have really been the only one that has really stood out as far as different. But really, going into this game, weapons weren't really my concern because I felt like there was always pretty good variety, especially when it came to different types of different swords and different stats with those swords and all of that. I was cool with the weapons. My big concern going from Nioh 1 to this game was the bosses and variety of enemies. Because in the first game, really my main complaint, if I had to dig for one, because I did love the game, but when I did think about complaints, it was about the oversaturation of bosses. I felt like they could have done without some of them, and I felt like the quantity was what their focus was rather than the quality, at least for some of them. I just felt like they could have went a little further with some of these bosses in terms of design, move sets, and things like that. And from the two bosses I fought in the alpha, I can't really say whether I lean one way or the other. I feel like the concern hasn't really been addressed yet, and it's not fair for me to go ahead and say, yeah, I think these bosses are going to be the same because, it is an alpha. It is only two bosses that I've seen, but one of them was a poison boss, this snake-like creature that is around poison, it uses poison, and I thought to myself, okay, yeah, we've seen this before. The boss before that, the first one, was a little bit more unique, but it also kind of reminded me of a boss that was in the first game. So even though, it was kind of the template, it did have some new moves, but I just don't know if it was enough to be like, yeah, this is completely different. Again, I want to reserve judgment. This is an alpha. I don't want to just base my opinion on two bosses, but at the same time, this is what you're going for as your first impression of this game. So I was kind of hoping maybe there'd be something much bigger and grander, even in scale, to show me like, yeah, we're going to the next level. And I just don't know if that's really happened in my experience. So I'm going to reserve judgment. I don't want to lean one way or the other, but that was my concern going in. I'm hoping they focus on quality rather than quantity. If you have to shave down on some of the bosses to make the other ones even better, I'm all for it. And of course, mini bosses, I'm expecting those as well, just like the first game. And I hope there's a lot of those. I don't mind the mini bosses being a little repetitive and stuff, but when it comes to the main bosses, I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do better and how much grander the scale could be. Because when I think of like a Soulsborne game, I think about those big bosses. And I'm not saying Nioh has to copy that, but they already kind of did copy many things. So why not copy the best things about those games? And that obviously is the bosses. So if they could give me some bigger bosses, some that really stay in my mind and I just enjoy so much, I am for it. And then even when it comes to these enemies, you can see from the gameplay you're watching, some of these were recycled. They were in the first game and now they're back again. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Again, this was my concern going in. And yes, there are new enemies kind of blended in as well. I feel like there's a good balance of the two. So it kind of makes me forget that there's recycled enemies, and I guess that's a good thing. They need to have more new enemies. And if possible, don't recycle the same enemies in different areas. I really like when specific areas have specific enemies and they stay there because it gives those areas their identity. Like for example, I mentioned the poison before. Have the poison area have poison enemies and just let them stay there. I don't want to see them in different areas. So yeah, hopefully with the inclusion of new enemies, there's going to be so much more that they're able to balance it and not have so many repetitions and recycled enemies where they don't belong. Another thing I noticed, which I think is a good thing, is that they're focusing more on the surprise element of some of these enemies. More than a few times, I actually had some jump scares a little bit where these enemies just kind of came out of nowhere. Now, this happened in the first game, but it was a little more far and few between, at least from the alpha, at least that time that was spent on an alpha. I don't remember that even happening in the first game's alpha, but in the main game, there were parts where like bats would come down and scare you or try and scare you, catch you off guard. But in this game, in the alpha at least, there were more than a few times where I had those moments, and it really kept me on my toes. I felt like I was really trying my best to kind of stay alert and be ready for what's around me. So that, I think, has definitely become their focus. At least that's what I'm seeing from this alpha. And I would assume that the main game is going to continue that throughout. It seems like they want to go for those little surprise enemies that just come out of nowhere. You know, there's like enemies on the ceiling, they fall down as you walk by, and then you have enemies that just come from the corner of the screen and just start attacking you out of nowhere. That definitely happened a lot during my alpha. So yeah, it's, even though a lot of these enemies and potentially the bosses could be a little recycled and have the same kind of themes, the poison theme, and who knows what else they might bring in that's from the first game or just Soulsborne in general, things we've seen over and over. I'm hoping that even though they do bring those things in, to kind of just switch it up a bit and enough to make it where it's unique and different. And if they can have new experiences that we've never seen before mixed in as well, then I could forgive the recycled enemies and even bosses. As long as they're awesome experiences and epic, I'll be good. That's what I'm hoping for. But that's pretty much what I feel as far as playing this alpha and how I'm feeling about the game overall and in terms of my anticipation. The alpha has kind of grounded my expectations a little bit to just expect more of what I already like. And so that's fine. I'm not really disappointed or anything like that. But it is good to know that this is what it is, and I'm anticipating it. It's going to be a day one, and I'm looking forward to it. But let me know what you guys think. If you have been playing the alpha or you've just been watching gameplay, because I've seen people even comment on Twitter to me saying, I've only watched it and it looks the same. So even from just a viewing point of view and a spectator mode, you're seeing that it looks the same. But I'm here to tell you that playing it feels the same too. And like I said, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just what it is. And Nioh 2 is most likely going to be Nioh 1 with some extra stuff. I'll be happy. I'll be cool with it. But that's just me. Like I said, let me know what you think, you guys. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye.